Hello, everybody, and welcome back to GameDay Squad's Women's Aussie Rules Show. If you're here live, g'day. We're in for a good show today. We're going to take you through everything you need to know to get ready for the round that's about to be. And if you are listening to this back on our pod, then welcome. Today, we're going to give you the usual, give you a game-by-game breakdown. We're going to take you through our squads and some of the best players to start for the round. And I'm joined by good friend and co-host in Bales DT. As always, he is here ready to chop it up, mate. How we going today?
Yeah, good. Well, this time next week I'll be on a plane for 24 hours or so, which obviously going to America, which is fantastic, going on holiday for 6 weeks. But I'm not looking forward to that flight, that's for sure. So I've done it once and it was brutal, and I've got to do it again. So, but hey, I'm on a holiday, so pretty happy. But no, good. Trade period for the men's is done. Good to see all the signings all done, and looking forward to another weekend of Women's Aussie Rules Fantasy. And it's good to see we don't have any more double game weeks because we've had a couple extra days. We don't have to talk about games before they happen. There's not going to be any players locked out already. We've got all the players before, like right now, can still be changed in our squad. So looking forward to chatting through our teams, some options, and going through all the games.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well, you're right. It is back to normal. It feels weird not having games already played and, knowing some of the picture. But today we get to go through the entire picture of the round. There's some really exciting news, some players back, some players unfortunately injured. So without further ado, let's get right into it and have a look at some of the best from last round. That was round 7. And as you can see in starter, Ginby and Tonic, fantastic name. And an even better result, number 1. 2,367 fantasy points. Amazing performance there. And in our classic, Dead Man Inc. And as you can see there, Ginby and Tonic getting second, doing a bit of a Bales impression. Bales, you've been mighty fine recently, nice and hot in terms of the rankings. Ginby and Tonic has taken over. Look at that.
Yeah, no, he had a good week, and shout out to him. I've done a number of sort of trades and stuff with players on transfer, so he's a legend of the GDS community as well, along with a lot of names there as well. Like again, you can see that a lot of the names up there. We've seen the leaderboard, we've seen in the Discord community and stuff like that. Like, and look, it's funny. Like you look at it, Dan's Dynamos came 10th in both. Fez Mungies came 9th in both. Prison Mike came 6th and 7th in the classic and then the starter. Lionesses came 4th in both. I've got Mo Hope came 3rd in both. And then Comic came 1st and 2nd. So it's quite funny how a lot of those people actually did well in both. So unfortunately, I was in the sort of the 10 to 20 range, just outside the top 10 in those weeks, but still in the top 5 for both. I think I'm 3rd in starter and 4th in classic, but I just can't gain any ground on the sort of top 2 or 3 coaches in each comp. So I'm hoping that over the last couple of weeks I might be able to gain some ground. But as long as I can stay in that top 5, that'll be pretty nice.
Yeah, that's right, mate. Definitely want to be in the hunt for some seasonal prizes. But let's get into our challenger and champion, Fez. He's there. Fez again in both. But big shout out, Tony's Legends, taking out the number 1 spot in challenger.
And second in champion as well.
Oh, wow. And then Fez, shout out, number 1 spot in the champion, 3,254. Not much difference between that first and second spot there. So, look, it could have been anyone's round, but Fez does it again.
Yeah. I don't know if there's been a week where he hasn't finished first in the champion, if I'm not mistaken. There might have been a week or two, but every time I see he's always first.
And far between, that's for sure.
Yeah.
He is fantastic at what he does, and has been dominating this season, and that hasn't stopped. Bales, let's get into game 1. We have Carlton versus the Bulldogs in this one. You can see there the matchup matrix is indicating this should be a pretty good game in terms of fantasy points. Should be pretty open, maybe it's free flowing. I'm doubling down. Look, I last week came out, said Fitzgerald's going to have a fantastic game. Look, she didn't. Let's be honest. Unfortunately, she didn't have the worst game ever. She just didn't have that upside that I really thought she was going to have. So in this round in particular, as I said, I'm back in my guts. I know what I saw. The numbers are indicating that, she's having a really good season. But last round just wasn't it. She still had CBA numbers. She's going to bounce back. I'm pretty confident in saying that Fitzgerald will bounce back this round. She's going to give us a better score than the 60 she gave us last round. So I'm not shying away. Fitzgerald's a bit of a pot option for the defense, especially with how good some of our defenders have been. But this round in particular, I'm backing her in again. She's going to bounce back. She's going to give us a much better score. So start her with confidence, everyone.
Yeah. The only player I've got in this game is Tumbleweeds, which I know you didn't put in the on the thing there. No Tumbleweeds there, but no players for me, unfortunately, in this game. I do think though that Keely Shearer could be a nice pod tonight. We know the Dogs are a good matchup for midfielders, so if you want to go someone on your bench in your midfield, I think that could be a good play there as well. Alice Edmonds not this week against Carlton. I wouldn't be looking at that her tonight. And yeah, I think Fitzgerald could be a good, obviously you've mentioned a good defender, but also Georgia Stathis could be okay as well. Carlton third easiest matchup for defenders on the matchup matrix. Since Blackburn's been injured, that's meant Fitzgerald's played more in the midfield, which has meant Georgia Stathis has been the main distributor back there, but also Lauren Arends, who took a lot of the kick-ins, is also out for the season. So I think Georgia Stathis could be a good pod in your defence if you want to go for the other Bulldog other than Fitzgerald. So, yeah, a couple of there. But besides that, nothing more from me in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm feeling the same way. You know, Ellie Blackburn, just not really streamable at the moment through your squad. Some of the others that you spoke about, even
She's injured at the moment. She's out for the season. So,
oh, gosh. There you go. Don't start her at all.
Tom just had a moment. He's just like, oh, no, you can't stream her at the moment. She's like, she's injured for the season. Oh,
definitely not.
Yeah, mate, I've had plenty of those moments. It's fine. It's all good.
Yeah, and then Edmonds, as you mentioned. Just look elsewhere, I think. Some of the ruck talent this season has been really good, especially between the Wales, Stephanie, and but we'll see where we go from there, Bales. Let's get into game 2.
You're Tumbleweeds, this one here.
I'm Big Tumble. You're starting someone, and you're starting someone that burnt me last round, someone I've started for much of the season. So talk to us about Jessie Wardlaw. You know, not a player you've had in your squad a lot this season, but over the past 2 rounds now and back-to-back weeks, she gets that start.
Yeah, so she was obviously very good last week in both games, and they're both tough matchups as well. Like Giants, we know, were a tougher matchup for forwards on the matchup matrix, and then also Melbourne aren't easy either. Like they're easy enough for not the main key forward, because Talia Gillard's a really hard matchup for the key forward. We saw Caitlin Gould struggled against her a little bit in that first game last week, but then in the second game, Wardlaw went pretty well. I just said the Port matchup. I know it says Port is a hard matchup for forwards. I just think Wardlaw, she's pretty safe most weeks. I think Port's a decent matchup. I do expect St Kilda to get the job done. St Kilda obviously pushing for that final spot there. And I think with the fact that with teams being were obviously named not too long ago, both Renee Karras and Simone Nolder were both not named in the side, and Fiedler's in as a main ruck. So Wardlaw will be that secondary ruck in the game. So few extra hit outs as well, which is nice. Means that floor's not as low. And obviously with the matchup, I think that it could be decent. So yeah, that's why I've got her into the squad this week.
Yeah, for sure, mate. I will tell you what. She's done some great work. She's had some great rounds for me, and she's also burnt me a little bit as well. It's been tough, but I'll tell you the player that I've replaced her with this round when we get there to that game. But it's someone that you're very, very familiar with, and you've been very big on all year. So it's probably about time I got them into my starting squad.
I think I know exactly who you're talking about, which it's good that you finally got them into your side.
But alrighty, Bales. Anyone else you want to cover in this one?
I don't think so. Matilda Schultz was potentially a bit of a smoky as well in the ruck, but Liv Levicki's been named in the side. So I think that just takes off Matilda Schultz's ceiling a slight bit. Like, I don't think we're going to see these 9,500 plus point games from her. I think that it means that she might score around the 80-ish, 85 mark, which if you're happy with that, then put her in. That's fine. But I still think that with Mimstrom, the Wales sisters, a few other options, I think that they're probably better for this week. So I'd probably just leave her on the reserves for the week. But yeah, Serene Watson as well could be a defender smoky. We haven't actually really touched on her too much on here, but obviously in other formats, she's got a lot of talk because she was cheap in those salary formats. But here, she's been the main sort of kick-in taker for St Kilda and been pretty good. And Port, you can see their second best matchup for defenders. So Serene Watson could be a decent shout this week if you want to go for another smoky, because some people might be in that stage, Tom, where they're like, maybe they're just outside the top 20, outside the top 50. They want a few smokies to maybe win a week or get inside the top 20 or top 10 or wherever they're looking for. So you might need a couple of smokies. So Serene Watson could be someone, if you want to go there, you might be able to.
Mate, well, I'll actually tell you what, I have a short coming out tomorrow on GameDay Squad. She's my big pod start of the round. And honestly, if I had a
There you
Watson
go.
card, I would be starting her over Fitzgerald. I've really, really been impressed with how she's been performing. And some of these metrics and like the indicators, as you mentioned, the main kick intaker, she's been playing on nearly every single time. She had a season high of 19 kicks in a game twice this season. So she's getting her hands on the pill heaps. And now she's just getting a little bit more involvement in terms of handballs, marks, and then she has about 2 to 3 tackles a game. That's pretty average for her. But that is totaling to nearly, it's like 80 to 90 fantasy points a game. She's on a
Yep.
bit of a streak as well. She's just been in really good form in a pretty good matchup. If I had a Watson, mate, I'll tell you what, I'd be starting her this round. That's my big pod
There you
start of
go.
the round.
Big take.
Yeah, and I think she's going to perform. It's a great matchup for her. She's in great form. There's no reason why she doesn't come out and blitz it.
Yep. No, I fully agree with that.
Alrighty, mate. But other than that, let's get into
Here
the
we
next
go.
one.
Bit more
The matchup
relevance, a few more
matrix is a
players.
little bit, it's saying no. It's saying a big avoid. Don't start people. But of course, we're going to be starting some players in this game because there's some serious talent. Why don't we talk about Wales first, the ruck option? Because you've mentioned Scholes, you mentioned Edmonds, you mentioned a couple. Why are you going with Wales in this matchup when, maybe the matchup matrix is indicating this could be an avoid?
Yeah, so this is the sort of, I think Giants are that one team where I don't take much notice of the matchup matrix because it must be broken for Giants because they do give up points. We saw last week Jesse Wardlaw scored well, and that was at down at Frankston. Was it Frankston or somewhere a bad ground anyway? Where it was quite windy, so it wasn't great in a great match, but she scored well. And then like they're saying that they're at the 18th hardest matchup for mids, but we just saw Ebony Marinoff go absolutely massive against them in lower game time than what she normally plays. So
yeah,
maybe the matchup matrix is big fans of the Giants and doesn't like to put any green on there. But Lucy Wales, with the fact that Fleur Davis is out, it's Eilish O'Dowd. O'Dowd's a great matchup for rucks, even though the matchup matrix says otherwise. So I think Lucy Wales has been in great form. She's been really good. So I think she's a really good player as well. Unfortunately, Greta Bodie is out for, I don't know if it's for the season or not, but I know she's definitely out this week with a toe injury. So that's not great. She was in both of our sides, and she was in my side, both in starter and classic. So that's why I've actually put Anya McDonough in there, which I know Giants says 18th hardest matchup again here, but we saw Wardlaw score well last week. McDonough's, obviously, she scored over 100 points in her game last week. So I think that she's in good form. She's obviously playing in a pretty good team, and I expect Hawthorn to win, which means there'll be more opportunities for up forward. So I think she's a really good play. And obviously, to Lucas Rod, they're always a lineup block anyway. So I don't think they're going anywhere out of our lineups or squads.
Yeah, for sure. I will mention, I think with the matchup matrix, one thing I've noticed with the Giants is that overall teams don't perform well, which is why I think it goes into red, but key players play pretty well against them. So, you've got like your star midfielder, Knopf, for example, stepped up last week, 204 fantasy points. She's ended up scoring for the round.
Yep.
So she was amazing.
Liza West maybe is a bit of a pod maybe this week as the main midfielder in there. Emily Bates has been a little bit down just because I think Eliza West has almost taken that mantle as that sort of that in and under player and the player that's getting all the tackles, all touches. So she could be a smoke. I think she's kicked a goal in each of her last 4 games as well, which is crazy. So I think Eliza West could be another smoky pick, but probably less confident in her than maybe a Keely Shearer, just because I don't know if Eliza West has got that consistent ceiling as we've seen from those sort of top mids.
Yeah, which is why I like McDonough, key forward, one of the key players that she's going to get a lot of opportunity to score. If she can get a couple inside forward 50 set shots, then we could see her have a really good performance. So I actually rate the start, and it's a pretty good sub for you, as you mentioned. Bodie out. Let's get McDonough in. She's coming off 119 fantasy points. So
yeah, exactly.
She was awesome last round. Righty, mate. I reckon that wraps us up quite well for game 3. Let's get into game 4. My Swannies taking on the Gold Coast Suns. And as you can see there, a bit of green and a bit of red. So maybe you need to pick your poison a little bit. But one thing that we're not too concerned about, and maybe we should have a discussion, is Charlie Rowbottom. She seems to be just a bit up and down this season. She comes out some weeks, she looks like the absolute best player in the competition. And then other weeks, she comes out and she can barely crack the ton. So, we've become accustomed and we've been pretty lucky to have some midfielders who are so consistent in like Garner, Noff, Riddell. They're just always getting over that sort of 130 mark, it feels like nowadays. And even Noff is always above 150. She's just on a whole different level. We sort of had Rowbottom in that same category, mate. Do you want to talk to me about maybe what you're looking at in this matchup?
Yeah, so I'm glad that we're chatting about Rowbottom first. So I've got a couple of stats here. So I think a lot of people are going to take her out of the lineup this week, which is understandable. She's been down last 2 weeks. She has only scored 90 points and 88 GameDay Squad points in the last 2 games. The big thing for that, though, is the fact that Claudia Whitford has been missing in those 2 games through injury, but she's back this week. So that's, I think, a big positive. And in those games where Claudia Whitford was playing, Charlie Rowbottom, her lowest score was 112, which she did in rounds 4 and 5. But outside of those 2, her lowest score before that was 123, and that was in round 1. So she was on a tear. Like she went 190, 162, 112, 112, 151 after that 123. So she's been in really good form. And if you're getting over 120 from your midfield, that's exactly what you want. Like you're wanting your 120s. That's what you're seeing, like your Marinoffs, Garners, Riddells, like those players consistently hit. So I think the fact that Whitford's back, she's had the double game week out the way. She looked a bit tired last week and even in the game before. I think Whitford back, I think she'll be good. I know Sydney a bit harder, but obviously with Malloy and Gardner both being out, I think that means that Rowbottom will be able to get on top. Yes, Tanya Kennedy will probably go to Rowbottom. I wouldn't rule out a Kennedy tag on Claudia Whitford because I think Whitford could be shut down easier than a Rowbottom. I still think Rowbottom's probably one of, if not the most untaggable player, along with like a Jazz Garner and a Marinoff in the AFLW. So I still think Rowbottom is a lineup lock. If she was to, I guess, fail this week with Whitford back, and if she looked tired again, that would be a bit concerning because that would be a 3rd game in a row, Whitford back, and she still hasn't been able to get it. But I'm still trusting her this week to get it done. So she's still in my lineup, and I'm hoping that she can bounce back to at least 110 plus points.
Definitely. I guess one thing that I noticed as well with Rowbottom, it really seems that her target mark for tackles is 8. When she's had over 8 tackles this season, she hasn't dropped below the 123 fantasy point mark, as you were sort of talking about. But her other performances are 190, 162, 151. All the performances below 8 tackles are where we're seeing these scores under 100, and, we're seeing her drop. So it just seems like that magic number for her is going to be 8 tackles, and if she can get to it, then we should be in for a good round.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing as well, she does give away a couple of free kicks, but even in the lower scoring games she's done, she's only given away 1 free kick in each of the last 2 games. So that's at least a positive that we're not getting a lot of -2 points all the time. So hopefully that, Whitford back, hopefully we can see a good score. And then Daisy Darcy obviously has been pretty much a squad lock for us for most of the season. She's just been very, very good no matter where she plays. Defense, midfield, doesn't really matter. So I think that she'll have another good game once again.
Yep, 10 CBA attendances last game as well in round 7. So just dominating, playing super well, getting over double-digit kicks in every game other than 2 this year. Like, fantastic from her. And as you said, lineup lock. I agree.
Yeah, and shout out as well to someone we're not actually going to be playing this year, but Dynasty asset, looking for, we've talked about your Rowbottoms, your Goldsworthys, your Ella Roberts are probably the clear top 3, and like you put up Matilda Schultz and a few other players. But someone that's really come on this year, that was back in the last year, she did really well. But Sophia Hurley, one of your Swannies, has been really good this year, averaging the 104 points. She's not really someone we're probably considering too much in our lineups, just with being a midfielder, but someone just to put on the black book. Maybe if you can get a couple of her cards in your club and store them away, because I think she's going to be someone that we're going to be talking about a lot more in a lot more weeks in future years, because she's looking like she's going to be a very, very good player for Sydney and for our fantasy teams.
Mate, you read my mind. I actually had a note here to talk about her. So why don't we just quickly get into it, because I did prepare.
Well, you do it. You're the Swannies man, mate. So you can go on about it and talk about.
I'll take it away, mate. Past 4 games: 122, 116, 121, 136. What it looks like to me is that with now Gardner out, there's a big hole that's been left, a big void, let's call it, in that midfield. That's about 30 disposals and nearly 10 tackles they're giving up a game. Someone needed to come into this role to get into that midfield and be the ball dominant player and dominate. And Sophia Hurley looks like exactly that. She just look like she's ready to pounce on that opportunity and to score really big. And, her tackles as well, 15 tackles last game. And if you just watched last game that the Swans played, she looked really, really good. She just looked outstanding. And every time she touched the ball, the Swans looked dangerous. One thing the Swans are willing to do is to take the risk and go through the middle. And she really likes to sit herself in there and be that sort of connecting player coming out of the defense and to be the player that's going to get it in there. So I love that you brought it up. She's a great dynasty asset. And if you wanted to go a pod mid this week, I really like the play.
Yeah, agreed.
You can see the matchup there against the Suns, 5th best in the competition currently. And, we've had enough of a sample size now where we know sort of what we're expecting in terms of score output. Sophia Hurley will be the highest scoring mid from the Swans, in my opinion. What that number is, though, I'm not sure. But if you want to take a bit of a risk, go for a pod and someone who could boom, especially with her recent form, she's the one, man.
Yep. Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I think she's going to be really good.
Alrighty, pals. Sounds great. Let's get into a game that is just full of superstars. This is going to be the Demons versus the Tigers. And, of course, the usual suspects here for all of us, Conti, Sheeran, and Kate Hall. All of these players are having phenomenal seasons. Bales, do you think for GameDay Squad this year, are they all-star squad locks? Can we call these people locks? They're surely all in consideration.
Yeah, I think Kate Hall's lock. Obviously, she's the number one scoring forward, I believe, this year. So she's a lock. Sheeran, obviously, we've seen since the first 2 games where she had lower game time, she's gone over, I believe she's gone over 80 in every single game. Or I might even look at that. She might even been gone over 85 in every game since those first couple. So she's been fantastic. So I think she'll be there as well amongst those top few defenders. And Mon Conti's been great as well. Like, she had a couple of quieter weeks, I think in rounds 2 and 3, but outside that, she's been really, really good. So yeah, she had the 89 and the 90 points in round 2 and 3, but she went 138 in round 1, then she went 120, 96, 156, 125, 113 in her last 3. Melbourne, great matchup, as we know, second best matchup for mid. So maybe with Liv Purcell back, may makes it a little bit harder, but I still don't think it's hard enough where she's going to be out. And I think that Conti's still one of those top few. So I think she's a good chance to be one of those all-star players at the end of the season. But yeah, just back on Isla Sheeran as well. She's only had 1 game below 84 points this season, which was 72 points that she scored in round 4, which was when she only played about 56 or 57% game time. So she's been great. And more often than not, she's actually going over 90 points. She only had the only game since the first 2 where she went under 90 was last week, funny enough, where she actually had minus a few points late after the post stats update, which was very frustrating to see that. But yeah, she's been fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess the only thing that I could think of that would keep Sheeran out is just the game's not played, because I know we do take total points for the season into account. So it'll be tough. Some of the defenders have been extremely good this year, so it might be a bit of a tough. But Conti, definitely a good chance, and Hall, I agree, is a lock, mate. But let's talk about someone we're not starting. Katie Brennan, one of the forwards at the start of the year where we thought she's going to be featuring in our squads a lot. Sort of feels like we've gone away from her a little bit over the past couple of weeks. I know you're looking elsewhere. We're looking at some upsides, some CBAs, etc. But look, mate, she's coming off 81 fantasy points, and her games before that were 42, 77, 62, and 100. Is she a shout this game? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, she's a shout. Yeah, definitely. I just worry that Melbourne are normally a decent matchup for forwards, but I did mention as well that Talia Gillard is a tough matchup for opposing key forwards. And who's she going to go to? She's going to go to Katie Brennan this week. So I'm worried about the individual matchup for her. So that's the reason she's not there. I think we started her a lot at the start of the season because a few of these other forward options have presented themselves after the first few weeks. We probably preferred them, but also that Richmond had a really nice run to start the year as well. So that was the other thing, whereas Richmond have got a decent enough run to finish the year. So I'm sure that Brennan may make an appearance in our squads at some point in the last couple of matchups with a couple of good ones. But I think Melbourne's just not the matchup for me that I want to plug her in. I'd rather an Anya McDonough, for example, who I've put in, and a few other options that I'm sure we'll get into in the last couple of games that we've got in instead.
Yeah, fair enough. And mate, I totally agree. Look, she's on the cusp, definitely, and she's not a bad shout at all. So if you are starting Katie Brennan, it's a great option. She's in some really good form, and she's back in her goal kicking form at that. So
Yeah.
just not for me. I've definitely got some other players I'm looking at, like yourself, and yeah, she's just missed out on sort of that best 7 for the round, in my opinion. So yeah, that'll be it, mate. Let's go
Beautiful.
into game 6, West Coast versus the Freo Dockers, and some of the regular names here. And I'm very scared. When I saw you submit this, I'm like, you're a genius. Gold Mim Strom, fantastic matchup, one of the best in the entire competition. Why don't you talk to us about that? You've got the gold, you've got the salary cap on there, and I think it's going to be a really good decision for you, mate, come the end of this round.
Yeah, I hope so. So Mim Strom obviously been fantastic. I don't know how many points clear she is, Tom, of the next best ruck, but it's probably at least 20, 25 points. Maybe you can quickly look it up
Season?
for me there. For the season, yeah. So in terms of average.
140, mate.
So
140 extra over the season.
What about average points per game? How much?
I can give you that.
How much is that? That'd be interesting. A decent amount.
I think it's about 14 or 15, but let me get it for you.
Is it? Wait, 140. It's 20 points, I reckon, isn't it? 20 points a week.
Wales on average 93 to 112. Yeah.
Yeah, better part of 19 points, 20 points. So she's clear by fair way. And West Coast, good matchup, third easiest, as it says there. But they keep chopping and changing their rucks. Like Sarah Lakai's come back in. They had Tess Lyons in there. They've had Georgie Cleaver in there. They've had Lauren Wackfer in there. So they've had a lot of these different rucks playing there. So I just think Mim Strom, she fills up all the stat lines. Ariana Hetherington's out as well. So that was someone that's taken a couple of hit outs throughout the game. So if any more bonus points for Mim Strom, that's fantastic. So I think she's a great play this week. So that's why I'll put the extra little bit of salary on her, because not only this week, but we'll talk about her next week as well. But she's got the Giants next week. Like these next 2 matchups for Mim Strom could be absolutely massive. So I think she's got to be in your lineup. Even if it's just a bronze, just has to be in lineup block every week. And then if she, again, got the good matchups where if you've got the extra salary, if you've got a silver, gold, even a platinum, I'd even look at potentially, if you've got that, even plugging that into your side, because I think these next 2 weeks could be massive for Mim Strom.
For sure, mate. Well, why don't I talk about Thomas, and then you can talk about that player of difference that we have here.
Yep.
But Charlotte Thomas, one of the best defenders. I had her at number 2 in my preseason rankings, and I didn't think things were going to get much better for her from last season. She had an average of like 85 fantasy points a game, which had her as the number 1 defender. But guess what? She's definitely having a better year this year. Her average is 94 for the season, and she's coming off back-to-back tons as a defender. She is in some insane form. 25 kicks last game, Bales.
Yeah, ridiculous. It was fantastic.
25 kicks. She is just on fire at the moment. She's the
season high. Season high, first time since round 1 where she had over 20 kicks. She had a couple of 18 and 19 kicks. But funny enough, her last 4 games, she's had 19, 18, 19, and 25 kicks. And as we know in GameDay Squad, kicks is gold because you get the extra point than the other format. So 4 points for a kick, which we love. So, but just on Thomas though, her last 4 games, she's gone at least 83 points. She's tonned up in her last 2 games as well. So again, and her lowest score for the year was a 71, and she went back-to-back weeks of 70s, but every other game's been over 80. So 3 tons as well. I don't know if there'd be many defenders that have tonned up in at least 3 games. She may be the only one. I might have to do a bit of digging myself for that.
Rod will probably.
Yeah, Lucas Rod might be one. Yeah, so there wouldn't be too many. So she's definitely right up there. See, Lucas Rod's only done 2 times. She's got a lot of 90s, like high 90s. She's got a lot of 96 and 97, but Charlie Thomas has done it 3 times. Even like a Maddie Gay's done it on 1 occasion. She's got a 99 there as well. Maddie Newman actually could be the other player that's done it multiple times. So she's done it she's done it 2 times, but with a 99. So we're looking at all these players that are the top of the defenders. Cho Thomas has gone over 100 more often than not than those other players. So she's having a great year, and her marks are down than what it was last year, but she's still having a major impact. And again, talking about dynasty assets, she's again still very young. So she's going to be one of those defenders that we're going to be keeping in our squads for many years to come.
For sure, mate. Let's pick up the pace. We've got 14 minutes until kickoff, of course.
Actually, kickoff has actually just started, unfortunately.
Oh, has it?
I didn't realize it was an early game tonight.
Early game today. It has. Yeah. Oh,
7:15 Eastern, mate. We're throwing out with daylight savings for me, but no
I
daylight
know.
savings for you. You go from half an hour in front to half an hour behind, and then an hour behind Melbourne. So it's all happening. But yeah, I'll talk about Gabby Newton.
It's Gerald already one kick. All right, let's go. Sorry,
Beautiful.
Seth.
That's right. No, it's a bit of a different experience, but we're live when the game started. But yeah, Gabby Newton has been fantastic this year. She's had 2 scores of 65. Every other score has been over 70, and only 3 scores below 85 this year, 83, sorry, this year as well. Her last 2 games, 102 and 98, playing more up the ground as well. Great matchup against West Coast, and then she's obviously got another good matchup. She's got good matchups for the rest of the year as well. So Gabby Newton's been someone I mentioned on our podcast with Jaden in the week that I think she just hasn't been talked about as much, and she's a real pod option when she probably shouldn't be, because she's one of the top sort of few. I think she might be in the top 5. Tom, if I'm not mistaken.
Nah, she's outside.
Or just outside?
She's in the top 10.
In the top 10. 100%. So she's just outside there, but good run, got a good role. So I think Gabby Newton's someone that I'd probably play in my squad for most of the rest of the weeks of the season, I think.
Yeah, mate. I made a video on her earlier this year saying that she was a massive stash and get her in. But
who drafted her in our draft in the preseason?
Yeah, that was you. But one thing that I do want to raise, just because I think it's relevant for this, and it's that time of the year where we start looking, into the future. We look into 2025, some of the position changes. Someone like Charlotte Thomas, for example, she plays defense. She's going to stay in defense. Amazing. That's exactly what we want. She's one of the best defenders. You got a Thomas card, you're not worried. But Newton, she's playing a lot of time in the midfield, and actually more time in the midfield than any other position. So presumably,
she won't be a defender next year. She might be a midfielder or a forward. Hopefully forward would be nice, but I think it'd be more of a midfield. Otis Sheeran the same as well. She won't be a defender next year. Yep. She'll be a midfielder with her role. So there'll be a few changes there next year. But as you say, Thomas, though, in terms of dynasty asset, it's perfect. She's never going to change position. She's always going to be a defender. She's going to be a high-scoring defender, and you just need her in your squad. So, yep, I like it.
Spot on, mate. That's exactly my point. So, yeah, Newton, enjoy it while you can, because there's only going to be a couple more weeks, I think, of that sort of defender role, and then we're going to have to let it go. Be a midfielder will definitely be a lot harder to start. But let's get into Game 7. This is a stacked game, Geelong versus the Lions. I've gone with double Geelong players, Aisling Maloney, who I think is currently playing like the best forward in the competition, and the numbers definitely back it up. She's kicking goals. She's getting lots of her hands on the ball a lot. She's kicking just a lot in general. Just a general player's been amazing. And I'm, ideally probably a bronze we want in there, but I'm just getting Emma Maloney into my squad. I think it's a big, big player that you need. She's just on fire. And probably one of the better forwards in the competition just currently right now. She's had 2 tons over her past 4 weeks. So that should tell you enough as a forward. That's pretty rare, unless your name's Kate Hall, then you're doing that nearly every other round.
Exactly. The only flag I'd put on her is this week. The matchup is terrible. I know that it says I think Tom, I reckon that people doing the matchup matrix have got Brisbane and GWS mixed up, because I don't know how Brisbane are number 1 for forwards and mids, because I don't think that I don't know if they are, or the matchup matrix has put in a different stat, because I know they're hard, and that's my worry this week for Maloney, is that she's got a very hard matchup against Brisbane. I think she's a player that's got a good enough floor that you can still play her, and I think that if you're still worried that she might put up a good squad, be leaving her in there. But if you've got a 50-50 call, I think you could lean away from Maloney this week, but I still think she's a great option to have for the rest of the season. I'm just worried this week with the matchup against Brisbane. And that's why you've got Beck Webster as well. That's why I don't have Beck Webster in my team this week. But Beck Webster, I think it's a little bit different. I think that she's the player that goes midfield defence. Geelong give her the ball no matter what.
Yep.
I think she's fine. So I'm not too worried about that. I think with defence, so there's just so many defenders that I've picked a couple of others that have got good matchups. But I like both. Sure. I think both have got the ceiling that they can do it on any given week. And I think Maloney and Beck Webster are talented enough players and very good players at that they can score against anyone in the competition. So
for sure,
I don't mind having both of them in, but I just don't have them in my side this week.
No, absolutely fair, mate.
But I'm very happy. You've got a forward. Talk to us.
Yes.
You finally come round and put Courtney Hodder into your side. Talk to us
why
she's finally making a debut for the Zoos Cannons.
Look, I've had a bit of an issue with trying to pick forwards over the past couple of weeks, but one thing that is for sure is that Courtney Hodder is really, really consistent. She definitely has some of those ceiling games where she scores a lot better and she's sort of in that upper echelon of players. But just overall, her role, she's getting a couple CBAs, but she doesn't even need them to score, which I think has been the most encouraging thing that I've seen personally, and probably why I'm now confident in starting her into my squad, because I'm not looking at her and she's not relying on being in the midfield to be able to produce some good fantasy scores. Like last game, 0 CBAs, 81 fantasy points. So that should tell you enough. She's doing enough around the ground, 10 tackles as well with that, just by the way. She's a tackling machine. She's always going to tackle. And when you're getting 4 points for a tackle, mate, that's someone that you definitely want in your forward line. She hasn't really been as dangerous in front of goals, only 4 for the season. But, you just know that on any given day, on any given matchup, she could just go nuts and just break away and have an absolute day. So knowing that she's got the upside to go, amazing and just go ballistic, and then also has a pretty good fantasy floor because she just does everything else really, really well. Courtney Hodder's come into my squad finally. I know Bales is super happy about it. She's probably been deserving it for a lot longer than taking 8 weeks or 8 rounds, to get her in. But we're here.
And I've never said it because I'm never going to tell you who to put in your squad, Tom. But I've been surprised each week. I had her in my top 7 before the season, our rankings, and she's been consistent. And I'm just like, I talk about every week.
The same for Wardlaw, and you haven't had her in, and now you've got her. So
yeah, but that was because I didn't actually have a Wardlaw card, whereas you had a Hodder card, but you were just like. Maybe it's stubbornness. Maybe like Bales has got one over me, so you didn't want to play her just to sort of continue on the train. But no, you mentioned the consistency though. Like her scores this year: 63, 50, 69, 72, 45, 96, 69, and 81. So okay, she had a 45 there, and then she had a 50. But every other score's over 60, and her tackle numbers have also taken an increase in the last month. Like first month, they're up and down 7, 4, 8, and 4. But the last 4 games, 6, 8, 8, and then a season high 10 tackles last week. So Geelong this week, good matchup. I think she might even kick a couple of goals this week. She might be able to put a couple more on the tally, but also I think she'll have a few more tackles and be a good option. So I think she's another really good option to put into your lineup. And then probably the final player we'll chat about, Ali Anderson. I'll put her back in. Obviously, she's been in and out. She's in amongst that sort of 5th and 6th midfield that I sometimes put in and out of the side. I originally had Gold Conti in and Bronze Anderson, but changed it to Gold Anderson and Bronze Conti in my lineup. Helped also I've only got one Bronze Anderson, put her in the starter comp, put the gold one in Classic. But yeah, I think Anderson, great matchup here. I know that they're 11th, but as we know, Amy McDonald not being there, I think Anderson will be able to have another good game. And I don't know if she'll necessarily get tagged. I don't know if there's anyone that would tag her. So I think she'll have a good score and reward those coaches that have got her in their squads.
If anyone's here in the chat right now, let us know. Do you have any of the players that are currently playing in the game? How many did you have, Bales? You have
tumbleweeds. Yeah, tumbleweeds. So nothing, which is good. So I don't have to worry about sort of if I'm missing the game. I'm like, that's all right. I don't have any players in this game. So which is
have a look at how Fitzgerald's going, man.
She's going okay. 19 GameDay Squad points so far. So we'll see if she can keep going.
Let's go, Fitzgerald. I told you, bounce back week, baby.
I did say though. I said Georgia Stathis, good pod. She's on 16 GameDay Squad points already. So she was one that I said that could be someone that you consider.
But mate, let's talk about this game. And this is you have a player playing in particular. We've got the usuals, we've got the Garner, Riddell, the O'Loughlin. But if you go to GameDay Squad's transfer market right now and you punch in Madison Gay, one card will come up and it is a platinum. This is a card, a player that people are stashing. They're not wanting to get rid of their Gays. You've got her in the silver variety. So I'm assuming, was it packed?
Yeah, packed. I don't even know when. I might have even packed it last year when she was at Melbourne and they got transferred. I don't even know when I packed her.
I've been keeping an eye out on the transfer market to see if a Gay would just come around, if I could pick her up for my squad for probably the good part of 3 weeks now. I still can't get her. This is definitely one of those cards that you just have on me at the moment, and I just don't have that same upside in terms of defense. So why don't you talk to us about why I want Maddie Gay so badly and to put her into my best 7 defenders weekly?
Yeah, so part of me, just before we do as well, I'm partly disappointed there is that platinum on the market, because it would have been really good to have said that. Hang on. Sorry, something bloody caught my throat, bloody frog in the throat.
Right,
It would have been good if there was no platinum on the market, because then we could have said there was tumbleweeds of Madison Gay on the market, because there's none on the market. But yeah, she's highly sought after card. Part of me is like thinking, I don't quite know why she's so highly sought after. Like top 5 defender, like is great, like right. But
yeah,
normally with these highly sought after cards, it'd be like an Ebony Marinoff, Jazz Garner, a Kate Hall because she's the best forward, Mim Strom. But people seem to have an abundance of Marinoffs and the Kate Halls and Garners and stuff. But a lot of people don't have a Maddie Gay. So she's definitely someone, if you've got her, you put in. The fact she's got North Melbourne this week, bit of a trickier matchup. North can be quite hard to score against for defenders. But again, Maddie Gay, she had a 63-point first game, but since then, 119, 76, 99, 86, 93, 82, 93. So in her last, what's that, in her last 5 games, she's gone over 82, and a few of them being 90s as well. So just uber consistent. The silver as well. There's been a few tons. There's been 4 tons as well with the silver in there, which is good. So, yeah, if you've got your player, I think she's a squad lock each week. So, yeah, I think she's a really good option.
Absolutely. But look, O'Loughlin, Riddell, Garner, I think this is a trio of players that you can nearly lock in for the All-Star squad this season. They have just been some of the best in their position. In particular, that midfield duo, just so dynamic, so unstoppable. And, I think every single round this season, we have had Garner and Riddell in. I don't think there's been a single game or round where we've benched either one. So that just goes to show how good they are, how consistent they are in terms of performance. And, we've got a platinum and gold in each, which I think just reinforces that point even more. Not only are we going to start them every round, we're going to put our highest salary cap that we possibly can, knowing that these are going to be some of our best performers weekly and trusting in them just every round, no matter what.
Yeah. It's because of they've got such a high floor, but then they've also got a really high ceiling as well. Like just with Jazz Garner, like we probably thought she's had, I guess, not as good a year as what she had last year. Last year she was fantastic. She probably should have won the best and fairest award in the AFLW. A lot of people said she was the best player in the comp last year, and I would agree with that.
Likewise.
But like this year, she's still averaging 139.3 points a game. She's been, again, uber consistent, 125, 152, 112, 150, 98, 162, 114, and 160. She's kicking goals every week as well, getting forward. And the games where she went low, so she scored a 112 in round 3, and then she got the 98 in round 5, which is the first game. Both those games, she rested forward for the whole last quarter and then was on the bench for the last 5-10 minutes of the game. So those, she could have had a ton in every single game. She could have gone over 110, 120 in every single game. So, yeah, I think she, again, lineup lock. And Ash Riddell was, her form has dipped a slight bit the last 3 weeks. Like she was like someone that was going 140, 119, 169, 140, 158. Her last 3 scores, 106, 119, 111. Still good, but not to the levels that we were seeing. I think that had a little bit to do with just the condensed fixture. She wasn't. She was still getting the ball, but there wasn't as much tackles. And we know, in fact, she loves tackling as well and getting a mark. But her marks have been down. She's only taken 4 marks in her last 3 games, and her tackles the last 2 weeks, she's only got 8 in her last 2 combined, and she had 9 and 7 in her 2 before that, and then 13 and 10. So her tackles and marks have been down. I think they'll climb back up again this week. I think with the double game weeks behind us, I think she'll have a good end to the season. Essendon, a great matchup for midfielders. So I think Ash Riddell will bounce back to a better score this week. And Jazz Garner, I think, will continue on her merry way. And O'Loughlin's on lineup lock every week as well with the forwards.
Love it, mate. Let's get through this. We've got one more game to get through, of course.
Wait, snap. Exact same 4. Same rarities, everything.
The exact same 4. Same rarity. The Fantastic 4, maybe you might want to call it. Bales.
Mate, I'm not going to argue with you for that, mate. The Crowies there and calling Fantastic 4. I'm not going to disagree.
Mate, just first of all, first in the Crows, of course, but look at that average. Just the difference between Marinoff and everyone else is absurd. 180 now in GameDay.
Just to put it into perspective.
When you think, you Just Garner might be the second best player in the competition, and she's outscoring her by 45 fantasy points a game.
Yeah. So Garner is the second highest, averaging 139. And yeah, Marinoff averaging 180 points. And we've got a gold, luckily,
Mate.
which there is. I packed this not long ago, and there's only 27. I think you've probably got the 28th or 29th or even the 30th. So there's not many people that have got it. And all the competitions that people play, having a gold Marinoff is like gold dust. It's like gold dust, having a gold. So averaging 216 points, that gold card is for us in our lineups. And she's taking the game to another level this year. Her work rate's so much better than what it was last year.
Which was fantastic.
And that's what I mean. And that sounded bad when I said it coming out, but her work rate was already fantastic last year. She's taken to another level this year. Like, I was always of the opinion that Hatcher was arguably the hardest working player in the AFLW. I think Marinoff's arguably gone ahead of her, or at least level with her. Like, her work rate's great. She kicks the ball so much, which is, again, fantastic for GameDay Squad. She's had 17 tackles in each of her last 3 games, which is ridiculous. Yeah. And she's just putting up 180 points like for fun. Like, she's gone over 200 3 times. We're talking about defenders going over 100, and Charlie Thomas is like the only defender we've seen have gone over 100 3 times. Marinoff's done it 3 times over 200. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Like,
I guess it's the equivalent, right?
Yeah. In a way. We would have loved if obviously Menu would have gone. We would have loved if GameDay Squad had players where you scored from both games last week, because Marinoff, we've seen players in 2 games have one big game, one quieter game in the double game weeks. She went 181, 204 points in a double game week. She went nearly 400 GameDay Squad points.
Yeah, I was literally going to bring this up. Just for context of that, even if we took her lower score, she still would have been the highest scoring player in GameDay Squad last round. So if we took the lower of the 2, she's still number 1.
Yeah. Even if you halved her average, if you halved her average, she'd be a player that would be like, oh, she's still a very good midfielder, but probably not quite getting in. But she's still in the conversation. Like, be averaging, like, she's 180 points is absurd average. It's just absolutely ridiculous. She's an absolute jet. I love the fact she's a Crows player. She's been my favourite player ever since I started watching AFLW, and for very good reason as well, because she's very, very good. But the other 3 players you want to chat about them, I've seen you've chucked in a forward that you didn't have last week in there, but the other 2 have been a consistent lineup lock for us most weeks.
I'll talk about Gould, because that's definitely someone that I backed in Cynthia Hamilton for the Swans over her. And I was looking at that matchup, and I spoke last week just based off sort of the opportunity. And I had a look at the matchup matrix. I knew the first matchup for Gould was going to be really tough, and guess what? It was. So I sort of thought, well, maybe I was onto something. But unfortunately for me and for people who didn't start Gould, 97 fantasy points in the second one. And that was always the concern. I just didn't want her to have a really bad performance in the first round or game, and then, something to happen, because we have seen that happen before. Potentially doesn't play, illness, injury, knock on wood. You never want
I believe that second game last week for Caitlin Gould, if I think I heard Liam say on the free kick pod that it was her highest score of her career, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or the first score over she's had in excess of 80 points in the other formats, but I think she scored well over 90 in her second game. So I think that might be a high. I don't know if that's a high score, but one of her high scores in her career. So it just showed how well she played.
Yeah, well, last 3 performances, let's go 74, 86, and 97 fantasy points. So form, fantastic. She's doing a really good job of just being that full forward for you, a really good presence, clean hands, and of course can finish in front of goals.
A few hit-outs as well. Had a season high 11 hit-outs last week, but she had at least 5 hit-outs in her last 4 games, so that's another positive.
Exactly right. So, Gould was sort of that on the fringe for me, but now I need her to come into my squad and hopefully do a good job. So, good matchup. I'm expecting her to play well. She's going to get lots of opportunities to play well with the ball being down in the forward line. So we'll see how she goes. But, yeah, very happy to have her in this week, Bale. She's a fantastic player.
Yeah, agreed. And then, Maddie Newman and Chelsea Randall are amongst the top sort of few. I think Maddie Newman would be creeping up pretty close to Lucas Rod for the top averaging defender as well. Like, I remember I don't know about you, Tom, but when I order my players in my squad each week, I put them by average of points. And nice. Lucas Rod has been in that number 1 spot for pretty much the whole season. But Maddie Newman averaging 91 a game, like Charlie Thomas is 94.1 and Lucas Rod's 98. So, but she's creeping up there. I think she's she's a top 3 defender now. So yeah, she's definitely a lineup lock each week.
For sure, mate. But there we have it. That's our game-by-game analysis. Here's Bales' squad in all of its glory. We've gone through the players that he's starting, but just for a little visual, you can see it all there. Salary cap definitely being tailored towards the midfield, but pretty standard. You know, you want your best players to have the highest multiplier, I guess the best opportunity to score. The Goldstrom's probably the big highlight of it as well. Loading up on that ruck, loving the West Coast matchup.
Yeah, exactly. And all the salary, as you can see, the salary is literally on all of the mids. The ruck, who's also averaging well over 100, and then the number 1 forward, and then the top 2 defenders, but everyone else is a bronze. So that's probably what I've been lucky that I've packed the players that I have, and I've got this, like, I guess the rarities I've got, and it allows me to do that. But this is probably sort of the ideal sort of setup I wanted to go with from round 1 if I could have. But obviously, you gradually pack some players. But weekly 16, not too I'm happy enough with it. Like, you still get a couple of game day squad money and put in the bank, and a couple of little packs and stuff. But yeah, the number 1 mantle was pretty good for a couple of weeks. So hopefully we can get back up there, because I've been in 4th place, I feel like, for the better part of the last month, and I haven't been able to get higher than that. And I think it was a Prison Mike was 1st overall, and he's got a bit of a lead on me now. He's got about 241 points ahead, but I'm less than 100 points behind 2nd and 3rd. So I'm hoping that
right. You're so close, mate. So
yeah,
close.
But then I'm only 18 points ahead of 5th, and what's that? 58 points ahead of 6th. So I'm still not safe for a top 5 spot yet. So still need to keep grinding, but hopefully we can get in amongst that top sort of 2 or 3 and sort of lock in a top 5 spot, so don't have to worry.
Yeah, for sure, mate. Let's get into the Zeus Cannons. Weekly 18, just behind you, and seasonal 13. I just had a look. I think it's 250 points, and I'd be in the prize card hunt. So, look, there's some things are really going to need to go right this round.
Only 71 away from the top 10 as well. So, you got a couple of pods in there as well. We didn't really chat about Bonnie Too Good because we just ran out of time. But Bonnie Too Good, we saw return last week. Look pretty good. I'm just nervous a bit with the North matchup, but besides that, I think Bonnie Too Good was F1 at the start of the year. We had her ranked there, so she's definitely someone that will come into my calculations as early as next week, obviously just because she's not in my squad this week.
Yeah, I definitely am taking a bit of a risk. Look, first game back, 76 fantasy points. I was pretty happy with what I saw, but I need to be one of the players that is playing people who I think are going to explode. And we spoke about Hodder this week, got a really good matchup. Bonnie Too Good just on any given day, just with how versatile she is, could explode. So that's, I guess, a big factor into why I'm going Too Good. And then some of the players, I don't have Bodie. I have Hodder in for Bodie there. So if you are looking and you're wondering, Tom, you didn't talk about Bodie. She's out. I do know. Hodder's actually in that spot.
Yeah. Well, just looking here just as well before we wrap up as well, Jess Fitzgerald. Yep. Top scoring player at quarter time. She is on 38 game day squad points. Hang on. She is on 41 game day squad points at quarter time. That is.
I say, everybody, bounce back week, bounce back round.
Now I'm after message Cal, who's on his honeymoon, to get him to log into the devs and put Jess Fitzgerald in my lineup.
You know we can't be doing that. Nice try. But that's a perfect start. Here we go. Pod defender. How many people would have Fitzgerald? Hopefully not many, if any. So if I can, start climbing up the leaderboard, this could be the beginning of something great. But Bales, we're going to say goodbye to everyone for now. Thanks so much for tuning along. If you are listening to this now live or in post-production, hopefully you're now equipped with all the tools you need to dominate round 8 of fantasy. As Bales hinted at, the season is coming really close to ending. We've only got 2 rounds after this one, so 2 more shows for the year, and we'll be wrapping it up. The next show, next Thursday, 5:45 p.m. So make sure you come along. You get them ready for an awesome round. It'll be one of your last opportunities to score big and to get some prizes on GameDay Squad. Bales, any closing comments you want to leave everyone with?
No, just enjoy the round 8 of AFLW, and hopefully players score well. Hopefully not better than mine though, so I can keep my charge up to that number
Come on,
spot. Or if people copy my side, then hopefully we score well. And there you go. So yeah,
alrighty.
Good luck, everyone.
Cheers, legends, for coming along.